I want to make a game. It's a game that I've been designing and writing for at least 5 years now, but I've never gone so far as starting to actually make it. I've always loved turn-based RPGs, at least in theory. I love strategy, I love taking time to plan out my moves, coming up with the most ingenious plan the world has ever seen, and watching it fail horrifically because I made a stupid mistake. But every time I actually play an RPG, none of that happens. I spend all of my time grinding, dying from critical hits, sweeping trash mobs, guessing what the boss's weakness is, getting by only making the most obvious moves, and just generally not having fun. I want to make a challenging, turn-based RPG with no randomness, no grinding, and perfect information availability. This means that a skilled enough player will be able to make the correct decision in any situation without relying on knowledge checks, blind guesses, or luck. In terms of gameplay, it's most closely inspired by Shin Megami Tensei, which is the parent series to Persona. Your party members are monsters that you recruit through negotiation and swap out at will. To most people, this will be most reminiscent of Pokemon. I used to play a lot of competitive doubles Pokemon, and at times it was incredibly fun, because the strategy is surprisingly deep, and making good decisions using your knowledge feels amazing. I want to capture that feeling without capturing the other parts of competitive Pokemon. I also recently played Persona 5 The Phantom X, which is a gacha RPG where all of the characters have needlessly complex toolkits. However, it just boils down to memorizing a rotation in most cases. The actual strategic depth is hidden behind needlessly obfuscated mechanics and spending an absurd amount of money on the gacha to max out your characters. But it did get me thinking, what if this game was good? I started designing some mechanics and movesets, and I'm very happy with some of the ideas I was able to come up with. I think they'll play together really well. I won't get into too much detail about specific monster designs, at least not in this video. Let me know if you want me to in the future. In the story department, I want to finally feature a story that I've been writing for about 5 years now. I won't be sharing much, as I'd rather not spoil it, but I will say that the story is deeply personal to me, and touches on topics like how trauma influences your perception, how much pain you'll put up with to love someone, what it means to be special, and how to keep on living when nothing matters anymore. I also want to actively support modding. For now, the game is called Project Celosia, which is just a placeholder. Despite having worked on this for so long, I haven't thought of the real name yet. How am I gonna make it? I've made games before, specifically bullet hell Toho fan games and Minecraft mods. However, I've never built elaborate systems myself. For my Toho fan games, I used a pre-existing engine called Danmakufu. It's really bad, and I could make a whole video on the many things wrong with it, but it comes with all of the foundations of a shmup built in, so it's very easy to get off the ground with. It goes without saying that I was building off of an existing framework for my Minecraft mods as well. How am I going to decide what to use in order to make my game? I have attempted to use Godot before, but I found it overwhelming and confusing. I don't care for the GUI, and I would rather exclusively write code. So Godot is a no-go. A quick search for GUI-less game development frameworks yielded several results, most of which did not entice me. Love 2D would require writing Lua, which I obviously don't want to do because it's Lua. Raylib is written in C. It can be interfaced with from other languages, but I'd rather not have to read C to understand the code I'm using. SFML is the same, but for C++, which I want to read even less. Then I found something called libgdx. It looked really easy to use, and it's written in Java. People really hate Java, especially for game development, but it's very easy to read and write, it's more than capable enough, and I'm already familiar with it because of Minecraft. So I decided to try out libgdx. I followed their first tutorial, and after that familiarized me with the basics, I already felt ready to start making a whole game. I'm very certain that I won't start over in a different language in 14 weeks. Making it. I started by creating a basic main menu. libgdx has robust UI systems in place, and there are also many existing UI libraries that I could have used. but I ignored all of them because I didn't really feel like working with someone else's system. I have very specific designs in mind for my menus, both in terms of appearance and responsiveness, so it seemed easier to just build it myself, especially since I've been doing it like this for years. For the font, I picked Koruri. It's what I've been using for everything for years. It's not flashy, but it's easy to read, it has a small file size, and it includes characters for almost all languages. libgdx reads fonts from pre-rendered images, but I set it up to create the images from the font file on startup because, for some reason, when I tried rendering the images beforehand, they would always display wrong. The reason the FPS counter shows about 165 is because that's the refresh rate of my monitor. Next, I created an extremely basic turn-based battle system where pressing Z deals some damage and then the opponent takes their turn. Then, I expanded the battle system to have 4 units on each side, each with various skills. In some games, you pick a move and it plays out immediately, but in other games you have to pick moves for all of your party members before any of them happen. I've chosen the latter here. It's a bit harder to get a grasp on, but I think it lends itself better to strategic depth and makes it more satisfying when elaborate plans work out. Encounters with trash mobs that slowly drain your SP aren't any fun, so in this game, every battle starts you at full HP and 20% SP. Every unit regains 10% SP each turn, and more when using certain skills, such as Defend. Bloom is basically a team-wide ultimate meter. It fills up a little each turn, and more when you hit weaknesses. Each unit has a powerful Bloom skill that uses some amount of it. Each skill is composed of various skill effects. For instance, Fireball, which deals damage and inflicts burn, is composed of a damage effect and a give buff effect. Buffs and debuffs are both classified as buffs internally since they're the same system. All skill effects implement the interface skill effect. This way, they share a common base type and the common base method apply. So any class that implements skill effect can be stored in an array of skill effects and have apply called on it, which could do almost anything for any given skill effect. I have no idea how in-depth I should be with technical details. Is anyone interested in hearing about them? How elaborately would you like them explained? You're really not supposed to do anything graphical until much later in development, but I couldn't help myself, so I overhauled the visuals of the main menu. This uses no images and is drawn entirely with triangles in code. I found an excellent library called Textra Typist, which makes it very easy to give text elaborate effects. I really shouldn't have this much power. I'll try to avoid misusing it. Next, I wanted a way to be able to actually tell what was happening in detail and reference it, so I added a running log of everything that's happened in the battle. This was extremely difficult. From this point onward, probably more than half of my time will be spent improving and fixing this log. One thing I had a lot of trouble with was logging shield. The shield given by normal shield skills and the shield given by the init defend skill are two completely different things in the code, but I needed to treat them as if they're the same because the player shouldn't have to think about that. It's only separate for technical reasons. The next thing I added was a range system for skills. Skills can only reach so far away vertically, and some have an area of effect, such as a column of 3 targets. I was dreading adding this for a while, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Skills can also have effects that only apply to the main target. Next, I added a full-size log that pops out from the side of the screen. I also added colors to the log, which was more difficult than you'd think. For example, when a stat changes, you'd think that decreasing is red and increasing is green, but some stats want to be lower, such as the damage taken multiplier, so the colors need to be the other way around for those. Then, I added a set of input prompts in the bottom right corner that dynamically update depending on what input method you're using. It was surprisingly difficult to display the merged directional glyphs, such as the D-pad with up and down highlighted, rather than separate glyphs for each direction. I can't hardcode it because the keybinds are fully remappable, so someone could remap up to A and down to LT or something. Instead, I opted to replace the glyphs with merged ones whenever a mergeable glyph sequence is detected. I also added icons for buffs and things. I added an overlay with some basic information about performance, state, and the host system, which should prove very useful for debugging. I used a library called Oshi to fetch the hardware information, but it seems like it got a little confused, because I definitely have more than 288 megabytes of VRAM. Lastly, I added an inspect menu that lets you view all of the details of a given unit. This was by far the largest undertaking of the project by this point, and it required that I solve numerous other problems. I had to write some elaborate rendering code for the tabs and bars. The bars always render in an order where you can see all of them. I also had to write code to build descriptions for skills, buffs, and such. These descriptions are largely automatically generated by my code, but unfortunately they do still require manual intervention. They can also include the descriptions of other skills, buffs, and such inside of theirs. And that's about it. This is an extremely simplified summary of the key points of 14 weeks of work. It's really incredible just how many things you have to do in order to make a game, but it's going smoothly and I'm having fun, mostly. I have no idea how regularly I'll make these devlogs. I'm a programmer, not a video editor, and putting this much progress into a single video obviously prevents them from releasing frequently. Please let me know what you thought in the comments. I've never done anything like this before, so I could use some respectful, constructive criticism. And as I mentioned before, I'd also like to know just how deep in the weeds of technical details you would like for me to get. Join me next time in this series where I scrap everything and start over from zero in monogame with C#.